Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Joshua, the founder and director of El Terreno Cultural Exchange Center here in the Ecuadorian Andes. Today, we've got a very special internship presentation, the most epic internship I think we've ever done up until this point, with Wies from Holland. She's going to be presenting her findings working in one of the rural indigenous schools here, and it's been a really important research project to really kind of dig down into the challenges that the schools are facing and really what's the dynamics that's underneath it, which is been very revealing to myself and the rest of the team. So a really important piece of research and then some great projects that she's developed as well over this time. So this is the end of her 10-month stay and a great opportunity to summarize everything. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Wies.
Okay, well, hi everybody. I will start sharing my presentation already. Is everything to be seen? I think so.
Yeah.
Great. So, yeah, like Joshua said, hi everybody. My name is Wies, and for the last 9, almost 10 months, I've been doing my internship here at El Terreno in Ecuador. And also, like Joshua said, it's been a long time. So, also to already prepare, it is a long presentation with a lot of information, mainly, but also because a lot of things and a lot of research was done. Um, so, again, I would like to thank you all for being here. Um, for my studies for international social work and its final semester, I had to do an internship and a participatory action research, which I did in the community of Cochapamba and the school in Cochapamba. And as a guidance, I had Joshua as my supervisor and Sebastian as my mentor. And today I would like to present the results of my project, what we did, what we found in the research, and what ideas and projects could continue in the future, and possibly also with future interns. And first, I would like to start from the beginning, around 9 months ago, when I started my internship here at El Terreno, as I initially wanted to explore a green and sustainable side of international social work, but I wasn't really sure what exactly and what was needed here in the communities. So Sebastian and I first started visiting different communities and their schools, daycares, and the hospital, and community leaders. And we did this in the communities of Atandawa, San Juan, and Cochapamba. And after our visit in the school in Cochapamba, my mentor and I both felt like there were quite some opportunities there, also because no other projects were done yet in the school. And I also noticed that my own interest in working in a school environment got sparked. So we decided to make Cochapamba my research context. And by the way, sorry, you can see here, you can see a picture of the school. It's only one of the buildings of the school because there's more behind and more behind in the picture, so to say. So before I continue, I would like to quickly give a small explanation of the educational and class system within the school. The school consists of two main parts, primary school and high school. And then high school is divided into two parts where the last three classes, so that you can see on the right side, focus on the school's career focus, which is agriculture. And as I will further explain later, my project revolved around the dropout students, which was detected highest after Decimo. So you can see here in the middle row, you can see Decimo, I highlighted it, and on the right side, Primero, Segundo, and Tercero de Bachillerato. And those were the classes that we also focused on. So after choosing Cochapamba as our research location, we started our second research phase, where we interview people from the school, the rector, teachers, parents of the community, the psychologist, and students. And we chose to interview the last class. And after analyzing the data, I made a mind map reflecting several issues and situations at the school, which I then concluded into several areas, as you can see on the right side. Also connecting several issues with other issues and causes and effects. So, because I think these issues are also quite important to briefly mention because I only focused mainly on education and students and also involving parents and teachers. But I think maybe also for future interns, it's important to mention some of the issues we saw per area. So to start with materials, we saw that there was a lack of didactic materials for classes and a lack of agricultural tools. In finances, we saw there was a lack of budget for materials, a lack of budget for food. We also saw that students and parents have to pay a monthly contribution, and teachers even sometimes have to pay things from their own salary. Within education, there's a lack of practical implementation. There's sometimes insufficient academic level in some subjects. There's a limited variety in careers because the school only focuses on agriculture. And there's also a lack of knowledge and guidance for special needs students. And then within organization, there's a lack of practical implementation of ideas. There's also mostly processed food offered in the school. However, they now have a nutritional program, but this needs to be kept monitored. There's also quite a lack of organization and structure within the school committees. There are several committees, but what exactly their roles are and what they need to be doing, and also the execution of it was quite unclear. And also a lack of the implementation of their bilingual education. The school has or promotes intercultural bilingual education, and they have also a manual for this, but this is not as much implemented. And there's also lack of teacher guidance and manuals for the classes for them. Then within the environment, we saw that also there was use of chemicals for the agricultural practices, and it's trash. There is a huge lack of water and a lot of water cuts, especially in the dry seasons. Now, recently they have some water sources, but this also needs to be kept monitored. Then around community and parents, there's a great need for parental support. There's also a parent committee, but also there's little action within this committee. We also heard through interviews that there's also some causes of violence within families. And a great issue, which is also coming back in my research, is the migration of the parents and family members. And lastly, also illiteracy is quite high among the parents. Then within health, there might be some nutritional issues, but there's also a need for further research. And then among students, we kind of detected a lack of motivation, interest, or capacity to study. We saw an absence in classes and the making of homework. We also saw a lack of support for students, as well as academically as emotionally. There's a shame of their own indigenous culture, even though they promote intercultural bilingual education in the school. Then I also will further explain this and further dive into this, but the high dropout rate among students. And we also had some question marks around concentration issues within the classes, but again, this also would need further research. Then teachers, there might be a possible division between mestizos and indígenas. Mestizos are half indigenous people, half Spanish people, and indígenas are the indigenous people of Ecuador. There's a need for empowerment for the teachers. We saw that there was a very high workload because there's not enough teachers. So a lot of teachers, they have a lot of different subjects that they need to teach, and there's a need for more specialized teachers because many teachers have so many classes, they have to self-teach, and they're actually not they haven't studied for certain classes or subjects. And then lastly, within infrastructure, there is a need for new and or improved spaces, like for example the classrooms, but also the bathrooms, the playgrounds. And we detected that a lot of people also wanted a fence around the school because there's a lot of dogs from the community, so kind of to protect the school. So I told you about this because I think this is quite important also for the future interns to dive deeper. Like I said, a lot of things need more and further deeper and deeper research. So we then presented all of these findings to some of the teachers, discussing in what direction our project could go. However, when discovering several issues, like I mentioned, another overarching issue arose, and that is the percentage of dropout students, specifically after Decimo, which is the last class of the first part of high school. And later, we also asked for exact data on dropout students, and it appeared to be a percentage of 52% over the last 8 years. So we chose to make this our research objective. How can we enhance awareness and value/relevance and lower barriers for students from Decimo until Tercero, so that's the last four classes, in continuing their high school education in Cochapamba. And a lot of the factors that we summarized in the mind map link to this issue as well, the dropout issue. Some issues were within the school, some in the community, some within the families. But having summarized all these areas, we also saw a lot of potential and opportunities for improvement. And then I eventually focused thus on education and students, and also including teachers and parents in the process. Then we also made a problem tree with 2 root causes in the dropout issue, which were further reasoned and explained through deeper causes and issues. So the first root cause was a lack of orientation and support for the students, which lies in different groups, the community, the parents, but also the school. And the second one, which was, which was the lack of, I think my presentation is not going all the way. Sorry, a lack of capacity, time and interest, and also motivation of the students. Because we saw a few of these reasons, which lies in parental migration. The students have a lot of domestic responsibilities at home, leaving little time for schoolwork. There is a need for more research in how people see the value of education and their interest in agricultural study. Their health could play a role in their performance and achievements. And there is a lack of empowerment. And lastly, the issues at the school and a lack of economic resources can also play a role. After the mind map and the problem tree, and choosing the last 4 classes as our target group, we started our last research phase, which we did through surveys with the students of the last 4 classes. And in these surveys, we asked about the migration of the parents, the interest in study careers and continue their studies in general, and what could possibly contribute to that, and about their current classes and extracurricular and leisure activities. And out of 40 students, we got 36 responses, of which the following results stood out. So here you see a slide on the continuation of their education, or if they wanted to abandon their education. And even though the dropout rate has been very high over the last 8 years, when asking about their interest in continuing to study, the majority says they want to continue in all 4 classes. So I made a division between the first 3 classes and the last class, because of course the last class, it will be their last year at Cochapamba. But we did want to know also if they want to continue to continue their studies in university, for example. So the majority said they wanted to continue, but a smaller percentage was unsure, and in total 2 students said they wanted to drop out. And some of the reasons, for example, they mentioned was that they want to continue to become professionals and improve themselves, or because they think the school is nice and they like the rural environment, but also because they want to have a better life and support their families. But some were unsure because they didn't really feel like agriculture would motivate them. They wanted a different career. And others were unsure also due to a lack of financial and economical resources. Then, as you can see, and as already mentioned, was also in interviews that the percentage of students that have migrating parents is extremely high, 70%, which is to mainly to the coast, which is seasonal migration, but also some to the United States. And it also appeared, which you can see on the right side, is that many students have many different interests in different study careers, even though the school has a focus on agriculture. And the most popular was the police or military, followed by nursing and agriculture. And when asking about activities that could contribute to increasing their interest, motivation, capacity to continue their studies in Cochapamba, the students chose and ranked the following options. And these options that we put in the survey from which they could choose, we based on the answers that we got from the interview. So we asked in the interviews what they would like to improve or things they would like for the school. And based on that, we made a few options. And as you can see, for both boys and girls, they wanted better teaching materials. But also for the boys, they would have liked to expand the variety of careers. Then a second for the boys, they had improved infrastructure, which the girls also had, but the girls also wanted an improved environment. And lastly, the boys also put healthier food, and the girls on a third place put improving the water situation and having less domestic and farming responsibilities at home. And when asking about the extracurricular and leisure activities, the students chose workshops on technical topics to complement agricultural classes, workshops on career options other than agriculture, and leisure activities, sports and creative activities. And these options were also based on the interviews that we did and the things they would have liked to see to be improved. Oh. And after the surveys and the interviews, we organized an ideation workshop with some selected teachers, parents of the community, and a student of each class, which we did here in Atandawa. And after discussing the results of our research, we chose 3 areas to focus on, which were infrastructure, education, and students and parents. And we did not only ask these questions, how might we for the workshop, but I also needed to do this for my thesis. But it was a great help to structure these areas more and what specifically we would like to improve or what we would like to work on. We then did a brainstorm session on each area, thinking of ideas, and these ideas we organized into different areas. And through an impact and effort matrix, we came out on 4 ideas, which were exchanges, leisure activities, support workshop courses for students, and something around the water. And after this workshop, Joshua, Sebastian, and I reviewed the ideas, and we came out on 2 possible projects, which was a collaboration on an agricultural project with the university in Guaranda, and educational or cultural trips for the students. And however, as this is also a reality in the work we do here, is that these projects did not work out in the end due to problems in collaboration and in transport. And we did have one cultural trip with the students, which was the tour in Guaranda, which was a cultural trip, but the municipal transport could not further help us with their free transport due to Carnival, and that's why we canceled the project. And due to some collaboration issues with the university, we also decided to cancel that project. So as we already had a lot of information and ideas through the interviews, surveys, and ideation workshop, we again reviewed those results and came up with 4 new and kind of similar areas, as we still wanted to implement elements of exchanges, leisure, and support for students through workshops and courses, for example. And we now also wanted to see how we could implement their indigenous culture and identity in the project and activities. So we then came up with the idea of making an indigenous mural and supporting this with guest lectures about indigenous wisdom. As we spread these activities out over several weeks, it also appeared that to coincide with an indigenous celebration called Mushuknina, which is the celebration of the Andean New Year. So we also decided to include this cultural trip. And we also kept in mind that this could be combined with an agricultural workshop or courses about Andean indigenous agricultural practices in the future. And in this way, we kind of hope to combine and connect all four areas and implement the needs, wishes, and opportunities of the students, but also align with the school's promotion of intercultural bilingual education. So in this and the following slides, I will show you some of the pictures and explain a little about the work behind the activities. For this project, I also had to do a fundraising, for which I made a fundraising page and a video, of which some of you have seen. So in total, we had 2 guest lectures for which we arranged different indigenous speakers. We decided to implement the ancient indigenous symbol, the chacana, which you can see on the left side with the sticky notes, but also on the right side, you can see the shape of the chacana in the grass. Because this is a very important symbol for Andean people. It is an ancient symbol deeply rooted in indigenous knowledge and their worldviews. And it is a holistic guiding framework for their social organization, for astronomy, for production system, agricultural practices, etc. So we wanted to implement that. And in the second guest lecture, we also made a physical chicana, which you can see on the right side in the grass, which we did with some natural materials. And this day there happened to be a minga, which is a Kichwa word for community work. So apart from many students and teachers, also parents joined that workshop. And this was the celebration of Mushuknina, the Andean New Year. And however, also a reality, sometimes none of the classes of our target group were able to join. So therefore, we decided to ask if another class could go to this celebration. And then we had the start of the mural. This was the first phase of the mural. We started with a collaboration with our local designer, Ridley, and we chose the building where the 4 classes have class. And our idea was to do the entire building, but because we did not raise enough money, we could only start with 1 wall. And during the first guest lecture, we brainstormed about ideas for the mural, out of which Ridley then made a full design. And we prepared together with a builder, we prepared the wall for painting. And we covered an older mural, and we wanted to make a new mural out of that and maybe implementing some aspects of that. And then this was the second and final phase. We drew the design and painted the mural. And we did this all together with the students and teachers from not only our target group classes, but also a lot of other students from other classes joined, which was a lot of fun. And after a few days, we finally finished the mural. And then we ended up with this result. So briefly, here you can see the chacana, and around you can see 4 animals. And we decided also to specifically choose animals for this region. You can see on the bottom the snake, on the left side the wolf, on the top the colibri, and on the right side, I hope I'm going to pronounce it right, but the kurigingwe, and it's a type of bird, specifically from this region. And this is what we ended up with. And to finalize our project, we did another survey, including some questions of the first survey. And we also asked about the activities and projects that I and other volunteers did. And like the first survey, we again had 36 responses. And in the following slides, I will compare some of the results with the first survey. So here you can see the comparison between the questions about their interest in careers, and comparing these results, you can see that there is now less different careers. Some careers are the same, like agriculture, mechanic, nurse, and police or military. But you can also see that there's less interest in the agricultural career, but still quite some interest in the police and military and nursing career, and also mechanic. So that's a bit of a difference between when we first did the survey and now. And then this question is the results about the interest to continue to their studies or to drop out. And again, the differences between the first three classes and the last class, because of course the last class does not continue their studies after their last year in Cochapamba. But we specifically now also asked about if they want to continue their studies in university or if they want to work. So again, you can see that the majority wants to continue their studies. Some are still unsure and some want to drop out. And comparing this with the first survey, so on the left side, the same amount wants to continue, but now more people are sure to drop out. And in the last class, it stands out that in both surveys, all four girls want to continue. So there, nothing changed. And what I thought was very interesting to see is that even though the majority says they want to continue their studies, this does not then really match with the dropout rate that we've seen over the past 8 years. And these are results reflecting their interest in the activities and the projects we did. So to briefly mention, we had for the first class, Decimo, you can see on the left side, we had a workshop of Rineke about gender. We had for the last three classes, we had a tour in Guaranda, the cultural trip. We had Munai Chakra, which is the garden that they made with other volunteers. There was a reforestation project. And then the last two were the guest lectures that I gave on the Chacana, or the guest speakers, and the mural that we did. And on the left, you can see that the majority liked the tour in Guaranda, the reforestation project, and the mural project. And on the right side, we asked students to rate each activity on a scale of 1 to 5, showing that they basically liked all activities, even though that I know that in some of the surveys, there are some students that rated some activities with even a 1 or a 2, but the majority, liked all of the activities. And when asking about leisure activities, which they would like to do, they again wrote down sports as far as they were most interested in doing sports. But there was also some interest, which was less than before, but still in cultural activities. And they also had some interest in agricultural activities. And then finally, we also asked about the contribution of the activities in the project and to their interest in continuing their studies in Cochapamba. Again, highlighting the objective of my project, how can we increase the motivation, the interest, the capacity of students to continue their studies in Cochapamba, and ultimately contributing to lowering the dropout rate. And these results show that 92% feels that the activities contributed to their interest in continuing their studies. But however, comparing these results with the percentage on if students wanted to continue their studies, it does not particularly align, as there was no difference in the percentage. So in both cases, 68%, almost 70% said they wanted to continue their studies in Cochapamba, which did not change over time over the last months. But then still in this survey, they mentioned that it did contribute to them wanting to continue their studies. There were even also more students sure that they wanted to drop out, which we could also see in the last surveys, or were still unsure. So these were quite interesting, survey results. And then we came to the conclusion and some suggestions. So in conclusion, I think some of the results regarding dropout rates were not so very clear or didn't match other responses from before. And this made me wonder if perhaps the questions weren't so clear for the students, or if they really can or feel like they want to express their true opinions in the surveys. It could also be that they don't connect some questions with other questions, or that themselves aren't yet clear about what they want to do. So I was just wondering, how honest and reliable are the survey responses and results really? Do they correspond with the actual dropout rates or the student participation in activities? As in some activities, I've asked myself the interest and motivation of students due to little participation or attention. But this might also vary from activities because, of course, I wasn't there with all the projects that were done. So to conclude, by diving into this issue, I can basically conclude that the more I found out, the more I realized I know less. And what I mean by this is that I discovered, and probably only the surface of the complexity of these issues. There are many cultural, historical, economical, and personal things of students that are influencing these issues. And I feel like I may have opened a door, but only to find out how many more different doors and paths there are behind these complex issues. So, based on these conclusions, I made some suggestions. And the first suggestion I would like to make is the importance of a deeper understanding of these issues without immediate practical activities. I think personally that maybe an anthropologist, a sociologist, or a psychologist intern would be very beneficial to better understand the research that we have started at the school. Then I think there's a need for more direct contact with the students to talk about these themes rather than mainly doing some interviews and surveys with them. I noticed that most students did not express themselves much, and I observe a shyness in many students to speak and to express themselves. And through surveys, I hope to keep it more anonymous and I hope to gain more responses. But I think it would be more beneficial to build better connections in real life with these students, face to face, by having conversations and gaining a better insight in hopefully their true opinions and needs and wishes. I also think that there is a need to interview more parents and new teachers, or possibly same teachers again as well. Also to review the projects that we have done in the past months. And I think there's also a need to further look into the relation between the students and teachers and between the students and parents, and how these things are also influencing, yeah, how much they feel supported and how much they feel guided at school. So that. And it would also be important to review the extent to which the students understand the questions being asked in the interviews as well in the surveys. Do they understand the questions? Can they link questions to other questions? And I say this because I felt that sometimes the answers to the questions were not really how I meant to ask the questions. So, yeah, that would need a little bit further research. And I think an important statistical step would be to review the dropout rate from the past year to see if there was any impact. And finally, I think as a next step in a practical activity would be an interest to focus more on sports activities, as this was one of the most valued by the students. And I think this could also possibly be used to get into closer contact with the students. And finally, I also think that it's important to keep taking care of the projects that we already have done and the spaces that we have created, like the chacana, so the thing that we made in the grass, but also the mural, the garden that the other volunteers made, and also the water wells that were recently donated to the school to provide the school with a more secure source of water. And then, gracias, Yupaichani. Thank you all for being here and listening to this presentation. I hope to have given a bit more of a clear picture of my internship and what I've been doing here in the community of Cochapamba and the school for the last 9 months. And again, I would also like to thank my mentor, Sebastian, and my supervisor, Joshua, for guiding me through this process, my internship, and my project. And yeah, also offering me this opportunity. And I think by that I will finish my presentation and ask you guys if there's maybe any questions.
Thank you very much, Wies. Um, Great job to take 10 months down into 40 minutes. It's not easy. It's not easy. Great work. Yeah, so we're going to open up to questions now. So please raise a hand if you've got something you'd like to ask. I'll begin. I thought it was really interesting what you were saying about how the survey responses aren't, may have been misunderstood. And it was interesting to see the difference in correlation between the number who wanted to continue with studying and the numbers who actually continue with studying on a regular basis. What would you put that difference down to?
Yeah, I think, like I also said before, I think the issues that we've been trying to tackle a little bit are very, very complex. And I think also my mentor, Sebastian, and I have had conversations about this. Um, I think many students, they did mention that they have an interest in a different career than agriculture. And you can also, that you can see in the surveys, that there is an interest in different careers. Um, but to be honest, I also find it a very complex question. Like, why do they want to continue to study, but why do they also still drop out? So I think I find it very hard to give an answer to that question right now. But I think it's a very deep and very a lot of different factors. The factors kind of that I already mentioned, that it all has a bit of an influence. And yeah, like I said, I think in an easy answer would be I think maybe the careers that they do want to continue to study, but they do want to study a different career.
Yeah. We've got a question. I think it's from Sebastian in the chat. Sebastian, would you be willing to ask it out loud? Okay, I'll read it out. If your internship had focused on solely the community projects without various university activities, assignments, and thesis, do you think the results would have been any different?
Hmm, that's a good question. I think, yeah, this is not per se that is specifically about the project that I did. I think this is more a personal experience. But also for other interns, I got to find out that my university assignments were weighing quite heavily on me. I had quite a lot of assignments, and it was also my first time doing a research. It was in a new context. Maybe it's also good to mention that I first initially wanted to do a half year, so one semester internship, but I extended. But this was also due to reasons that I really needed more time, and I really got to see the value of spending way more time than just a few months to do a project like this and a research. I definitely think for me personally, of course, the stress that came with uni assignments and all the things that I had to do for university did not help in my process and my engagement in the school. Sebastian and I also talked about my engagement only in my project versus the benefits of if I would have contributed and engaged in also other projects. So, for example, the reforestation or the garden at the school or the workshops that Rineke gave about gender. Um, and I definitely think, like I mentioned, I think there's a bigger need for direct contact with the students. And I think this would have definitely benefited if I would have joined and engaged in more projects. And I think also that if I wouldn't have had so many university assignments, that also I could have spent more time at the school. In the first weeks, I sometimes went to the school and I just joined some classes. And even though it was just a few times, there's already a lot of things that you can just see from only observing. Observing the behavior of teachers, observing the behavior of the students, observing the dynamic, seeing other things around and in the school. And that's also why I said I think there's a great need for like an anthropologist or a sociologist to take another perspective at these issues and have also more of an observing role and spending time with the people instead of focusing more on how do we want to improve something, what can we do, and what kind of project are we going to execute. So, yeah, to directly answer your question, Sebastian, I definitely think that with less university pressure and assignments, results could have been different, and also my influence on the community and the school could have been greater or different.
Thank you. We've got a question from Inti. Of the complementary projects carried out by interns based on your assessment, which one do you think had the greatest impact on the school?
So, if I understand correctly, which of the projects I think had a great impact, the greatest impact on the
the complementary one. So I think that's like the reforestation, the
Mhm.
Renicus project. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in that case I can not give a complete answer because, like I said before, I didn't really engage in the other projects that were going on at the school. So I can only base my opinion off of how I saw the kids working and their participation and their interest during my activities. I had quite some struggles sometimes. I sometimes felt that they didn't really want to participate. They were maybe not interested or they didn't like it. Um, but that also depended on the students. Some students were really, really engaging and they really wanted to participate. And we could also see this, for example, in the activity of the chacana making. We started with a very big group, which to me felt like, okay, everybody's very interested. But if you look practically and very directly at with who we ended, there was only a very small group. So for me, I find it actually a little bit difficult to really give an opinion on which project then had the greatest impact. Um, and I think the only thing what we have observed the last times we went to the school is that the students spend time in the garden, which other volunteers have made. And I think that might have quite an impact on the students as they're still spending time there. And as we've heard from some students and some teachers that they also really liked to have liked and still like to spend time there. So I think that maybe I would say the garden.
Great. Thank you. Any last questions? I'm going to ask one hypothetical question. Very hypothetical. If you were here for another 10 months, what would you do?
Um, well, I've actually been thinking about this question, going and giving this presentation at the school that I have given yesterday. I feel like it also grounded me again a little bit and putting a little bit more purpose to and direction and focus on what I've been doing for the last months. And to be honest, I only feel more excited to again with new knowledge and definitely my improved Spanish, my improved self-confidence. I would have really liked to continue. And like I said, I think there's a great need for an anthropologist or something in that direction. So, as I also have an interest in anthropology myself, I would have like I think for future 10 months, I would focus more on that, more contact with the students, more being there, more observing, more talking, making connection with the students, with the teachers, and yeah, really diving deeper into these issues and not per se really executing any project, but really talking and making a connection with the students.
Great. Thank you so much, Wies. Congratulations for making it through this marathon, not just with the project, but with all of your uni work and everything that went along with it. Um, it's been a real demonstration of resilience from you over this period of time. And, both Sebastian and I have really seen your growth during this time. So I really hope that it does serve you going forwards and you continue to grow and apply these skills and continue to transform yourself into the international social worker that you want to be. Any final words before we finish?
Well done, Wies. Very well done.
Thank you.
It was a clear presentation, and sometimes I was not really sure, and it was not clear to me what your activities were, or very little information. But through this presentation, I think I have a better view now, overview of what you have been doing these months. And I think you had a nice presentation. Well done from
Thank
my
you.
side. Well done. And I assume, or no, I understand along the past few years that you like working with children, students, children, and that is coming up every time in school and internships and working in Holland. That I think that you are good at and you like to work with children, I think. Is that correct?
Thanks, Mom.
Sebastian, do you
Okay,
want to say
well,
something?
Yeah. Yes. Hi, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to Wies for this month. She come here at the beginning with no experience in the Andean field, and even with her language. And in all the process, I see in Wies a complete evolve, especially in her professional career, in her professional attitudes, and personal even. And for me, is the best. I want to to talk about the entire evolve in all the process, in all the project, even with so deep and complexity, the project in the field, she find the solutions and done, and the work is done. Even with the problems in the path, I see in this knowledge and learning about that, because international social worker, and for me, is a very wide field of career, and it's very complex, very complex. And I want to thank you because in some part you help the community, help the kids, and then they now have new tools in the community. No, not only for your direct work, but only for the doors you open with, especially with the diagnostic, open the door for other investigation projects with other interns. And yes, this, I want to thank you, and you are welcome to return to Ecuador. Thank you very much. I'm glad to work with you. Very glad.
Thank you, Sebastian. Okay, so we'll end the meeting there. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us, participating, and a special thank you to Wies for all of your hard work and laying the foundations for future success and making an impact in these communities that are often so very much forgotten. So really appreciate the time and commitment you put in. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and until next time.